work together. Yeah, I'm not a big advocate of that, and I haven't seen it work very well. I think at the end of the day, again, that idea of, you can't have committees, or you need accountability. And accountability doesn't mean, again, it's just you've just given all power to one role, right? You can hold someone accountable for making good decisions and involving the right perspectives and voices and making good trade-offs and thinking about pros and cons and all of that. That has to happen at a level above. But at the end of the day, you ideally want to have one role making decisions. Over the break, we were talking also about the idea of dual hatting. And I love this idea in concept. So the idea, let's say you have a leadership team, 6 people. And they're all working, they all run like a function, right? They all have their piece of the work. And then you give them also a second hat to maybe think about a different customer group, or a strategic initiative across, or some other piece of work. And so the idea is I have 2 responsibilities, and so when we come together, in order to get my second responsibility done, I'm mutually interdependent on other people. It's beautiful in concept, really, really hard to pull off, that kind of dual responsibility. So, we usually start with the premise of, again, just knowing human behavior, right? Try not to work across human behavior. And I've worked around the world, and I really don't find people that different. So that's really, I know there's whole realms of cultural difference and stuff, and yes, but at the basic, we're human behavior. The 2 things that are germane here is people want to be on a team, and people work best with clear accountability. And some people are really good at not, at sort of working very loosely and being, but usually, or not having accountability for their work, or sharing accountability. I think there's few of those, and the problem is even when you find people who are good at that, that's fine, but if you have 25 people all working in that way, you get chaos. Okay? So we always start with the premise of decentralization and accountability, and design that, and then find where do we need to connect together, which is a different view of centralize and then devolve and give some empowerment to people. So it's a philosophical bias, but I think that you get better outcomes when you just acknowledge, hey, however we're going to put things together, we're going to create silos, we're going to create boundaries, right? Let's try to get those approximately right to get the right kind of team and accountability, and then let's really, really design the linkages and put our energy into making that work. That would be my view. Yes.
Could you carry on to give more example of what not to do? Like you mentioned about 2 co-chairs.
What else is on your mind? Do you have a thought? No, is there? There's something not to do. Yeah, I'm not sure. But what I would say, from a design point of view, it's hard to say. But from a process point of view, this work really has to be led by leaders, right? So it can't be abdicated. You can't say, let's make a design team, or the HR and OD team, come back to me with some ideas or whatever. This is the work of leadership, and I think there's 3 things leaders can do: strategy, organization, talent, and they got to work on all 3 of those, and it just. That's what leaders do. Is design, set the strategy, design the organization, make sure you have the right talent and spots, and develop them, and then the work is to keep working the system to make sure that it's as rational as we can make it, and help people get their work done and do their best, because the work happens down here. Yeah.
Yeah, I'd just like to clarify my thinking process, whereby what would be the prerequisite for this kind of system and process to work in an organization. Because my immediate reaction would be like, would the leaders in this conversation try to avoid accountability if the incentives and metrics are not aligned in the first place? And the second question is
Well, wait, let's take the first one. I'll forget by the time you get a second. Are you talking about these decision-making tools, or are you talking about organization design?
I'm talking about this decision-making tools, whether
yeah.
it work for an organization with accountability issues, where the incentives encourages silos and turf guarding and stuff like that. So I thought, would that be a prerequisite that we will need to work through before these things work?
Yeah, you're really on something, and again, it goes back to that, those sort of 4 columns of work. If you go into an organization and you just bring in decision right tools, and let's bang those out and let's do this, in an organization in which people don't take accountable, they're not held accountable, they don't know how to actually even have a structured collaborative, they're going to be like, well, that was some silly tool.
Yeah.
So it's always a system. And that's why this work really takes systems thinking, whether you're a leader leading a change, or you're in the HROD or strat planning role. There's no one tool, right? So I have to have a toolkit, and I have to think about how do I adjust the system, and how do I think about this in a logical set of steps. And that's why that diagnostic is so important, because I have to understand then what system am I walking into, because every system is different, right? It's a different set of tools, a different set of interventions, a different staging process about this. And that said, don't be overwhelmed, don't be overcomplicated. If you do a little bit of this thoughtfully, it goes a long, long way. You don't have to do it perfectly, right? But I wouldn't just throw tools at the wall. Start with an assessment and say, you know what, if we change these 3 things, just these 3 things, and a lot of times you're right, metrics is a good place to start. And I know most, it's not this, when I talk about metrics and rewards, I'm not talking about money. Even in most organizations, it's not about, nobody gets up except for salespeople in the morning to say, today I'm going to make more money, right? Only salespeople, absolutely, they're incented by, all the rest of us, there's so many other things that drive us and can be harnessed and just really aren't, in terms of rewards, recognitions, and metrics.
Yeah.
One more thought.
What's your favorite go-to tool or tactic for shaping the senior leaders' decisions, or influencing them, or inspiring their trust and confidence? Is there like a favorite tactic, like, okay, I work with a new client, this is the go-to tool, it will, 95% of the time, work.
Work to do what? Let's just say a little bit more.
To change their mind.
To change their mind. Data. Yes, I have answers to that. And then again, it goes right back to the diagnostic and assessment, right? I am just an agent, right? So if I walk in, and look, it's easy for me. I walk in a lot of credibility, and right, they've already hired me, right? They're gonna pay. So as soon as people pay, they're gonna listen. But you know what? I cannot walk in and say, that would be a disaster. Say this is what you should do. My role is to bring them data. And the data from their organization is the most relevant data. And sometimes, again, partners, customers, part of the ecosystem that you're in, that data too. So when I go out and do interviews and focus groups, and I'm asking, where are we going? What's out of alignment? What's not working? Again, I'm going sort of around the STAR model. I'm testing hypotheses. I'm asking them about past change projects. I have my protocol set of questions that are unique for each engagement. And very importantly is that leader and leadership team have seen those questions before. I'm going to interview them, but they have said, if we get answers to these questions, that will be helpful, because you want to make sure they're on board with the questions. You go out, you do interviews, you do focus groups, you come back with a good problem statement, right? A really well-articulated thing. This is the data. This is what your organization does. Yes, you've been talking about collaboration, break down the silos, teamwork, blah, 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 innovation. And what your organization is telling you, that you as a leadership team, well, you all nod and in the meeting and you all walk out and say different things. That, well, it would be very nice to collaborate, but we never even meet with that other group. We don't talk to that other group. We have no time to meet with those groups. There's no mechanism that has ever been set up for us to have a conversation about what we could do together or do better or best practices, right? In fact, we have conflicting objectives in our work, so of course we're not going to collaborate.